Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hey guys, welcome to another Note to File live sticky note. As you can tell, my voice is barely hanging on.
You sound great. You sick or what?
No, I'm just trying out a new podcast voice.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I've heard this really good.
Yeah, this is
That's the one you want. I think you can hit on a winner.
putting my best foot forward. So yeah, bear with me. My voice is a little shaky, but I'm doing my best. But I mean, you just have to talk more probably. So
Yeah, well, that's not a problem.
Yeah. No one's ever had to convince you to talk more. Today's March 17th. It is, I don't know, there's nothing special going on today. Actually, today is National Doctor-Patient Trust Day.
Is it really?
Yeah, according to the internet.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I tried to find out like a little bit more information or like the origin, and I really couldn't find it.
Like,
I mean,
even
the
how
internet
long it's been around?
No, it did seem to at least like multiple sources confirmed March 17th is National Doctor-Patient Trust Day, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information about it. Not that I tried all that hard, but
That's an interesting one. I mean, all for it. Love the
sure.
concept.
No, it's great. It's great. We want that. We want patients and doctors to trust each other. Obviously, a big component of what we do as an industry. So,
Yeah.
Also, I guess it's St. Patrick's Day.
It is. Are you doing anything to celebrate?
I've never really been a fan. I'm not a big fan of. I don't know. I'm not a fan of drunken crowds. So I've never really been that big on St. Patrick's Day.
That's fair. I don't know. I mean,
live in Wisconsin where everyone's drunk all the time. So
yeah, but we're not particularly Irish.
Yeah,
we go like, I feel like Wisconsin goes real hard on like the Oktoberfest. Like we're very like German, Scandinavian, like more like Czech, that vibes.
Sure.
So, like we do that kind of drinking, but like it's less Irish. I mean, certainly, generally, Wisconsin does not need much of an excuse to
just a regular Tuesday night.
And it's Taco Tuesday. So how do you combine these two concepts?
Well, I mean, America's a melting pot.
This is true. Do some corned beef tacos.
Find a way. Oh, there you go. I mean, that sounds disgusting, but I would
so that's my thing. Like, this is why I love St. Patrick's Day. Like, I weirdly very much like the Irish foods, like corned beef. Big ol' fan. I really like Irish soda bread, which I found a really good gluten-free recipe, which I will not make this year because it's a lot of work. But like that is why I like St. Patrick's Day, is like the excuse to make the food that I wouldn't otherwise make.
Yeah, that's fair enough. In my mind, it's still just like drunken mob stuff. And my office is actually like, I'm across the street from a hospital, but downstairs and like just a little bit behind me is essentially an Irish pub. So driving in this morning, like the street's already shut down for all this. So I'm, looking forward to getting out of here as soon as possible, not having to deal with too much drunken silliness.
That was like a huge thing in college. Like St. Patrick's Day was like a big ol'. I remember people would go hard with that.
I mean, people do get into it, which fair enough. I'm just old man who hates fun. Hates fun, right. Apparently.
Right. Well, that all tracks with what I know about you. So.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, let's get to it. Do the best that I can here. First thing isn't necessarily super clinical trials directly related, but I thought it was funny and probably at least relevant. I got an email, like a marketing email, essentially, over the last week from a brand of mushroom coffee that I enjoy, touting that, there's a new clinical trial, or it's now clinically proven. There was an 8-week randomized trial.
What did I find?
Well, of course, they found better sleep efficiency, less waking up. Basically, that this coffee is great. None of it is found in the regular coffee or decaf groups. It's better for your stomach. Whatever. I'm not trying to pump Everyday Dose. Although, if anyone from Everyday Dose is watching and you want to sponsor, please send me your coffee for free. But more made me like think about, as a member of the general public, you
Right.
see things that come out that are like clinically proven. I mean, you've seen it I'm surely on a lot of like
Well,
health and health adjacent, products, but then you go deeper and it's like there's no FDA
that's what I was gonna
oversight.
ask, because like with a lot of these like type, and don't get me wrong, like I'm actually like I'm a sucker for this shit like that, right? Like supplements and
Yeah,
whatever, like
sure.
different things, right? Like I like it, but it's funny because it's like it's all like this is not, it's like that weird category of this is not proven by the FDA or not, subject to, because it's like a supplement or like whatever, dietary supplements aren't subject to the same rigor as other things. So I just find it interesting. But I think the thing I found when you shared this, I found interesting is like that we've now moved into or back into, or I don't know, the idea that having something be in a clinical trial and proven from a clinical trial is a pull to the general public. So it's an interesting concept to say like, hey, from a marketing perspective, we think that if we say this is clinically tested, we've ran a clinical trial, they're throwing in words like randomized, like they're using some of the vernacular that we use in the industry. And at some level, from a marketing perspective, they're like, this is going to resonate and draw people in. Which I think is interesting to think about how the general public and how the marketing, because certainly I'm assuming Everyday Dose didn't know like, hey, Brad Hightower, he's in clinical trials, this is going to resonate with him.
No,
probably not.
I'm also guessing like the type of person who drinks mushroom coffee is also the type of person who might be interested in like the science behind these things. So they also might be catering to like their specific sort of niche audience, which I think are probably people who are into that.
Question then, do you think that's accurate? Do you think the people who are into things like mushroom coffee that are going to provide these health benefits, are they more like hey, we're going to put this towards scientific rigor and have it tested? Or are they the folks saying like, hey, I'm going to go this like natural herbal route and we're just going to vibe it and do and feel it? So like, is that going to resonate?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. It's probably 50-50 of like bro science types versus like actual, and in fairness, like I couldn't find a paper written. I couldn't find the study design like of this particular, touted clinical trial. And again, I assume this happens across a lot of these. Of course, like this is them doing their own study on their own product.
Not monitored by the FDA.
No, yeah, exactly. So it's hard to know, even as somebody who, I mean, at least vaguely knows about clinical trials. I don't know that how much I like trust it versus I guess well, I don't know though. I mean, every company's doing studies on their own drugs, right?
Right. I mean, that's who's sponsoring the drug. Yeah, it's whatever pharma company owns the drug. I mean, they're not running the actual data collection, but they're the ones running the trial because they're trying to prove that their drug works.
That's true. I mean, I've always seen that as an argument when these things come up. Like, oh, well, yeah, of course, like they're doing a study on their own product. Of course, they're going to make it look great. But I mean, you could say that about anything. Although we know that's not the case. We know most drugs actually don't make it through trials. So.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's, I don't know. I think it's interesting because it's like also then like who's running the trial? Is 8 weeks really enough? Like, I mean, when I was looking through this, I was like, all the things I was starting to trigger. I was like, I don't think the normal person's actually probably having the same thought processes that I am as I'm looking through this marketing content.
Probably not, but it's good. But it's marketing. Yeah, it is, and that's what it is. I mean, it's essentially just marketing content. I just find it interesting to like. I mean, this is what people think about lumped in as a clinical trial. I mean, it uses like, again, a lot, to your point, a lot of the same verbiage. I mean, it literally calls it a 8-week randomized clinical study.
Right. And it is interesting because when you talk to the random lay person, there's been a couple companies that have done this. And actually, I think it'd be fascinating to go around and just sort of do this in general, is to talk to more lay people about clinical trials. Cause I was getting some ink work done a couple months ago, and I asked my tattoo artist, I was like, hey, like, what do you think of clinical trials? Like, you have, 8 to 10 hours sitting with a person. you start talking about random shit, right? And his whole thing was he was not necessarily for it because his concern was that it was going to then limit some of the color profiles that they use because some countries ban certain ink colors because of things that they found. And so his like jumped to clinical trials. They're going to test the ink. It's going to limit my availability of whatever he's going to do.
Shouldn't it, if it's not actually safe? I mean,
but then it was this like went down a rabbit hole about like conspiracy theories and all of the things. But it was interesting just to think about like where folks think about clinical trials, and then like this is their exposure to it as a marketing email from their mushroom coffee.
Yeah, right.
So it's just whatever supplement or what have you. Interesting on the perception of our industry outside of our industry.
It is. And I mean, speaking of, trust with, pharma or the industry, I think the next one you would send over. That's not the right overlay. Let's use that one. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this came out a couple of days ago and coming out to say like they're finding potentially some interaction between vitamin B12 and, GLP-1 compounding components. And it sort of looked through to say like we're uncovering potential impurities based on this sort of interaction.
Well, I mean, hilariously, like it even says here, like they called the impurity concerning given what little is known about its short or long-term effects in humans, which should be what our clinical trials are helping tease out, right?
Well, and like that's where I was thinking when I pulled this up was sort of like I'm very torn because I think clinical trials take too long. They cost too much money. We try to overcomplicate them. And so I like the idea that we can move quickly and we can get things out and they need to get out. But then the converse side of that, it is things like this where you haven't looked at the interactions of all of the things. And it's a fascinating idea to be like, what did we not look at? What interactions did we not find until it comes out too late? And then, where's the balance? And I don't have a great answer on where the balance is on this, but I thought it was interesting considering the perception of clinical trials rushing through to get approvals, trying to reduce. Now we're going to have one clinical trial as opposed to two. Like there seems such a weird juxtaposition in the industry for like trying to make it shorter, faster, or efficient. But then we're also coming out with things like this. And then the Alzheimer's study we talked about a couple months ago is another example here as well, where we're pulling things in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And, it talks about too, because some of this is not, this is not coming from Lilly. This is coming from compounding. And it's talking about, it's not just B12, but like compounders or compounding pharmacies, I guess, are personalizing, a lot of these GLP-1s and adding all kinds of stuff. Which is interesting to me. I'm also really into sort of like reading up on the whole like biohacking community. Okay. People who are buying these drugs like on the gray market, like directly from China, because you can get like any peptide you can think of, you can essentially find. And if B12 is not super uncommon, so think about all the other interactions that might exist that people are just plugging into their bodies with no evidence,
Or it's being run on an 8-week randomized trial by whoever's making it, and they're marketing it and saying, hey, look, this is great for you, but not looking at all the pieces, which is, again, is the balance, I think, because we've looked at like clinical trials are gathering more and more data, right? But like how much of it's not being used. So it's like, I don't know. I'm very torn, I think, on, we should be looking at this. We should be studying it. We should be gathering the data. We should be testing it against all these things. But then... Yeah,
but to your point, like you can't test it infinitely against everything.
Right, exactly.
Then to what degree do you have to sort of, chill? I don't know who you are, LinkedIn user, but thank you for commenting. Yeah, the whole peptide movement is fascinating to me. And I read up on it way more than...
I haven't. Tell me more.
And I think there's, again, you can get basically anything shipped to you like directly from China, and there's all kinds of, mostly peptides and, HGH analogs and all the different GLPs. It's really fascinating. Like these people talking about, and you can see them like their pictures of like bulk ordering retatrutide, you know, from China, which is not even out yet. It's still being tested as like the triple agonist GLP.
The basic reasoning rationale behind this is because there's indications that it provides XYZ benefit.
Yeah, I mean,
and people just want it. Like,
research is showing that it works. I mean, and you can go look, like people have been taking this for months, and you can see them like showing before and after pictures. People who are tracking like all of their vitals and their blood results. Like they're going deep. They're doing little like N of 1, you know, studies.
But I mean, okay,
it's fascinating.
I'm on Instagram. I see all types of this shit. Like it's all these influencers who are like, this hair product, this is me after 2 weeks, or like these are the resistant band leggings I used, or like this is the face mask cream. Like it's all that concept of them showing, but like I don't know. Like, I mean, granted, I probably get sold on shit way more than I should, but like it seems like that. So it's like, okay, but that to me is like putting some shit on my hair, or like buying a stupid face mask from Korea. Is
these people are shooting up, dude.
That's what I'm saying. Like there seems to be a different entry point on like the risk tolerance.
No, they're taking like legit sub-Q injections. Yeah. So LinkedIn user is Kelvin Peak, by the way. So what's up, Kelvin? Yeah, you can get peptides for neurotransmitter, skincare, eyes. And again, you know, to your point, people are willing to sort of experiment on themselves. I mean, retatrutide, if you read the stuff that's been released, appears to work very well, better than any of the other GLPs on the market. The bigger question to me though is like, what are you actually even getting in your little vial? You know, like, and again, see people get together, they'll send it out for third-party testing, like here in the States. So it's fascinating. Like these little communities.
What they get. But like, here's the deal. Like, yeah, maybe it causes great like skincare, maybe it's great weight loss, whatever it is, but like all of the other side effects, like maybe it does do that. Maybe it also does other really shitty things to you that like you're just looking at the positives and you're not understanding the other impacts that it has.
I mean, just like this, there are people taking these crazy stacks, again, to Kelvin's point. I mean, if you're taking a B12 with a GLP, are you doing something bad happening to you? We don't know. So you don't know. Although, I mean, then you start getting into like some questions. Is it better to weigh 400 pounds or to inject yourself with an untested GLP and lose 200 pounds? I mean,
I feel like there's maybe a middle ground here.
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. I find it all extremely fascinating. And just, I mean,
well,
that article just kind of bumps up into that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is like, then there's all the things we have tested, we haven't done all the things. And then you see like 20 years later, it's like, oh, never mind. You shouldn't be doing this. We thought it was good 20 years ago. We ran some trials, we studied it more, and not a great thing. So like that even happens in the current system. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit, I've never thought of myself as particularly like risk adverse, but like I don't think I would fuck around with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I don't know. I find it fascinating. I don't know. It's sort of like, look, I guess you're going to die of something. So if you want to shoot yourself up with some untested medications, I mean, we're all already. I mean, do you really know like what's in your food for that matter? Probably not, unless how many of you are growing a garden that is, you know, untouched by God knows what. Again, I'm not condoning the behavior. To some degree, I find it really fascinating.
Is this part of the show that we say this is not like medical, legal, scientific advice?
No one should listen to this show, period. But definitely don't take any advice. I just find the whole thing, again, as somebody who, you know, is sort of, obviously we're into the clinical trial space, so like we have a little bit of a insight into some of this stuff, and then to see like the general public out there, you know, using it, again, fascinates me. And I don't know, it's definitely a weird gray area in my mind, because, you know, you get into the whole question of like, how much should patients be able to choose whatever they want versus, you know, some people taking it
whether they trust their doctor.
Well, yeah, of course. Again, it all ties in together.
I mean, well, because that is a whole thing, though. I mean, I'll say, like, even, I mean, it gets to, I assume this is Kelvin still again, but talking about ideologies for beauty and wealth, etc. And so folks are making these risks. And I will say, like, even on the social feeds, you look at, like, it's people who are like, and it's people who are, for all intents and purposes, reasonably fit individuals. They maybe have like 5 or 10 pounds that they want to lose. And they're like, well, my doctor wouldn't prescribe me. So I went to this other whatever, because I wanted to lose that last 10 pounds. And so it's like, you're then doing this, you're putting these substances in your body to get to that, perfect ideal. When it's like, it's not the 400 pounds, lose 200 pounds, be healthier, all your organs are healthier. It's, I want to cut out this, this, and this, and I want to do this. Like, it becomes just, I don't know, much different scenario, but it's available. You can go get it anywhere you want.
Yeah. Well, again, the whole thing is fascinating. I'm sure we'll talk more about it, because I also know there's been some government guidance about peptides, and they're allowing some peptides to be compounded now. So maybe we'll talk about that here.
Sweet.
Soon. So we got one more.
Yeah, this one.
Yes, we can talk about women.
You know what? Shut the fuck up. This is from our good friend Dan Shell, clinical leader, and interviewed a woman from UPMC, Nicole. I'm terrible at pronunciation.
We're going to say Ansani.
But from UPMC, obviously, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and did some research on women's participation in clinical trials and sort of what it was and factors around it. And looking at, like, obviously women make up 51% of the US population, only 41% of actual trial participants. So we're seeing a disproportionate representation there. But then it digs into why, and like why women are not participating based on this, study that they did. So again, getting into that territory of doing research on research, which I always kind of love. I think it's a fascinating topic. But basically digs into and finds the primary reasons that make up a majority of it is logistics and fear. And it looks at, like, I don't have access to the trial location or the time to participate. And then also just like not really understanding or wanting that in my body. And I think it's interesting because it compounds, like, it talks about trial design a little bit, but like how we're running trials, we're not running them for people who are in the workforce and caregivers and don't have that bandwidth to participate, which is, one of the primary reasons they kind of point to here.
Yeah, this stuff is interesting to me. I think, the top two, and this is where, there's a bigger conversation here about, I know the whole DCT movement, because the first two are really related to time and travel.
Mm-hmm.
First two reasons that, but in my experience, that's not necessarily, it kind of depends on when you're talking to people, because I'm surprised being told you don't meet study criteria is not higher.
Well, I guess that does depend on how they were looked, to your point. Like, is this folks who have just like anyone who they're connecting with to say, have you participated in a trial? Why not? And so for the folks who said logistics or time, they probably didn't even get to a screening appointment.
Yeah, well, that's my point. Yeah. So like, even if I'm just curious, like you see it and you're like, oh, it's this place, I'm not even going to bother calling or trying or, going further to get more information about it.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like we talk to a lot of people about being in a trial, and more often than not, it's not that they're like, oh, no, I can't come to the clinic. It's that they don't qualify to even come in the first place.
Yeah, once they get to that point, it's less they have a choice. But I think the thing that's
it's the pain. Yeah. It's a pain in the ass for patients, but I think we kind of underestimate sometimes like how much people will do it. I mean, I just saw a quote or something. I mean, being in a trial is like kind of like being in an unpaid part-time job, because you're, they're having to go somewhere, they're having to fill out questionnaires, they might be doing diaries and all this crazy stuff, but like people will generally do it, which I'm always blown away by. But
I find it interesting on that vein of like why people participate in trials. And I think like that's something I would love to hear more. I was at a conference, it was like a year ago or so, and they had participants on talking about why they were engaging in trials. And it was heartbreaking and adorable at the same time. But then pediatric patients come out and talk about why they were engaging in trials. And it's very much like altruistic in some regard, where it was like talking about doing it for future people who had, whatever. Again, it's going to be very dependent on indication, therapeutic area, disease state, etc. But I thought it was interesting to see like why folks do, whether like the logistics piece is a part of it. I would make the argument, though, that if you think about women's participation in clinical trials full stop, across the board, based on legislation and engagement and enrollment in trials, that you're starting from behind, right? Like women weren't in clinical trials till 93. Our cells weren't used until 2013, 2016 in like pre-clinical research. And so it's like, yeah, we're saying, okay, it's open season now, but it's not everyone starting on the level playing field still with like access and how they engage with clinical research. So whether it's like equal now, again, we're getting into very like affirmative action territory here, but it's that similar concept with access, awareness, and involvement in clinical trials.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if these reasons differ from the reason men don't participate to any degree. Or to
I would love to see that other side of this trial, because if they're just focusing on women, well then what's their sample size? What's their population? What's their demographic?
Yeah, there's only 400 women, I believe. I say only. I mean, that's a decent amount.
It's like a smaller,
not as many as you would like, obviously, to be,
Well, it's an interesting study. I think a lot of times when folks, like if you look at the work that Ken Getz does, he looks at more like multiple trials. Like it's a little bit broader, but retroactive. This seems more like actual engage, like less like a retrospective study. This seems more like a real, like actual real-time study. So they're engaging, but you'd want to see a larger picture across multiple demographics, etc., I would assume.
Well, again, it says it surveyed 400 women, but again, like how many of these people were actually ever in a trial? I guess they weren't, presumably, because they decided not to participate. So I mean, again, I think it's interesting to know like more specifics about this, because sometimes I think we're getting a little bit of the wrong signal.
How do you mean?
Who you're asking. Well, again, these people like people who tried to be in a trial but specifically decided not to? And I mean, it assumes that, or is it just the general public, or is it people who? Again, I think it depends on who you're asking.
I would love to get your take on this. I don't know who LinkedIn user, because we're not getting any names, but what are your thoughts? Do you think men are actually naturally take more risks than women, and that's why?
I don't know that I would attribute that necessarily, because I mean, I feel like no, I don't think that's true. And I think, again, it probably depends on what therapeutic area you're working within, but like I've generally seems like, in my experience, which again, data doesn't bear this out, but oftentimes women are a lot more likely to like hear out and consider being in a trial.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by that statement in general. I'd like to see some data on it. I don't necessarily think I agree either. I think it's just more personality dependent, and I don't necessarily think there's a gender dynamic for taking risks. But
there may be.
I mean, so now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to start looking into it.
Well, we can cover that in the next
one. There you go.
Hopefully back by then. All right. Anything else exciting before sign out here?
No, I think I covered a couple of things, and we'll be back Thursday. We back Thursday? I think so. Okay.
Cool. We'll go with that for now.
We'll go with it for now until something changes.
There you go. Awesome.
Good deal.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.